Hello everybody, it's Colin Ellis here. Welcome to another Culture and Coffee podcast for Monday the 23rd of January 2023. First podcast of the year. I'd love to say that loads of things have changed in the time I've been away, but it hasn't. What has changed is the weather, because I'm in Western Australia. I have an americano this morning from the DripHouse in Perth in Western Australia. The DripHouse. I fully intended to record the podcast inside the DripHouse, but it was just way too noisy. There's the buzz of people, which is great. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that coffee shops should start turning down the noise so I can record my podcast. Actually, I am insisting that if every coffee shop could do that from now on. When they see me arrive, that would be great. Quick, turn the atmosphere down. The last thing we want to do is upset the park. So I'm sat in the park in the early morning sunshine. It's already about 26, 27 degrees. It's beautiful. Shorts weather, as we say in England, shorts weather. Although, to be fair, anything over 18 degrees in the UK is shorts weather. So today I'm going to talk to you about how to succeed at digital transformation. I figured I would just start off with a bang this year. I'm like, boom, let's get straight into it. Let's just give people just some practical, because like everyone's still doing digital transformation. Like really, really badly. But anyway, I'll get there with that. Hopefully, if you took a break over for all my Australian, New Zealand listeners, if you've taken a break, I hope you enjoy it. Actually, for everybody, if you took a break over Christmas, if you celebrated, I hope you enjoyed it. It still feels weird. Although here in Perth, I should really finish that sentence. It feels weird that we take so much time off in Australia and New Zealand. It feels like things come to a halt for 4 weeks over summer. It's not the case. There's a real buzz about Perth today. Lots of people heading into the office. Disney are the latest people to order their people back to the office. I read in the news at the end of or last week, I think it was. So yeah, there's a bit of a buzz. There's no immediate snap back to work. I don't think. I always think it's like, and I used to treat it this way as well as a former manager. Advice that I give to clients now is that, you know, if you're an athlete and you get injured, what happens is there's kind of a gradual build up back to full training and full fitness. And I'm not suggesting that going back to work should be a 6-week process. You know, day one, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'll be fine in 6 weeks. Like, I'm not saying that. But I do think when you've taken a holiday, and in the last podcast at the end of last year, I talked about the fact that the last thing you want to do is come back to loads and loads of emails. Like, it's the last thing that you want to do. Also, the last thing you want to do on day one is to be like, oh my God, I've got 10 things to get off my task list. Now, of course, if you're working in a call center, if you're working in the emergency services, it's slightly different. If you're working for yourself, and I know of a few listeners who run their own businesses, it's not like, right, well, I'll get to that when I get to that. For you guys, it is an immediate snap back to work. But, you know, I guess there's a build-up to that in the case of you preparing yourself for that, you know what you have to do. And so there is that little period of time. And for most people, it tends to be the weekend before they go back to work. You kind of get yourself back into the right headspace. But it's not like, you know, it's not like when you're exercising, you get out of bed and immediately you start running everywhere, you know, unless there's a snake in the bedroom, in which case you definitely do. Anyway, I'm in Perth. Facts about Perth. I thought you might be interested for those of you who haven't been to Perth. It's after Adelaide, it's the city I visit least in Australia. And by visit least, I mean it's the city I have the least amount of work in Australia. Actually, I used to have quite a bit of work here in Perth. It's certainly in the early days. It's so far away though. Like, it, you know, it's the equivalent of England to Tenerife. That's what I always think with Perth. It's like a 4-hour flight from Melbourne to Perth. So prior to settlers arriving in 1829, prior to the English ruining it for everybody, it's the Noongar people have lived in the southwest corner of Australia, Western Australia, for 45,000 years at least. Several language groups make up the Noongar, include the Wadjuk people, who are the traditional owners of the land in and around Perth city itself. It's the 4th most populous city in Australia, so it's a population of over 2 million. So I think it's still Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth. I think it's that's the order. January is the hottest month in Perth, which I know it's difficult if you're from Northern Hemisphere. It's still hard to get your head around that. The average daily temperature is 82 degrees Fahrenheit or 28 degrees Celsius in new money. Western Australia, of course, was originally a penal colony for British convicts. Of course it was. Yeah, you've been so bad. Here, let's send you somewhere better. Yeah, that's the way it works. And it was just weird when they settled. I was telling the kids this yesterday. I'm sure they think that I'm the most boring individual. That when they, I think I've got this right, but when they settled this as a penal colony in the late 19th century, there were 3 stipulations or 3 conditions. One, there was no female convicts for some reason. I couldn't find out why when I researched it. Secondly, no political prisoners. So they didn't want any of your Melbourne or Sydney radicals. And thirdly, no convicts convicted of serious crimes. So if you're like you're a petty shoplifter, if you're an accountant, they used to deport people for if you're an accountant for fraud. Yeah. Anyway, convicts built much of Perth. At the town hall building here, that was built by convicts in the late 19th century. I think the other thing about Western Australia, it's massive. Like it's the same size landmass wise as Argentina, which is 2.5 million square kilometres or 1 million square miles, which is about the size of Argentina. Any Argentinians listening, like, don't hang me out to dry if I'm 100,000 kilometres out. And it's got some of the best beaches in Australia. We spent the best part of 8 days with some friends a bit further up the coast. We can't swim in the sea because of, the natural things you'd find in the sea in Australia, like crocodiles and jellyfish. But further down here in Perth, that's beautiful. The beaches are absolutely amazing. They really, really are. Anyway, I thought I'd do this. I should really get on with the podcast. I thought I'd talk about digital transformation. I've been reading a really interesting book over the Christmas period. I always do this. I pick one big book a year. Last year it was the Second World War. It's a massive book, which I loved. And this year's book, which is terrifying. It's not a horror movie. It's not a horror book. It's not Stephen King. It's called The Age of Surveillance Capitalism by Shoshana Zuboff. And really, it's about how technology companies are stealing your information. And that whole thing about, if it's free or the product is not true, right? If it's free, you're the medium by which they collect the data so they can sell products, all right? And then we willingly give them our information, and then we pay technology companies for the privilege of giving them our information, and then they sell that information on. So when you get kind of calls at tea time, it's because someone's bought a product from a data analytics company. Anyway, I won't bore you with the book. It's absolutely brilliant and it's absolutely terrifying, to the point where I barely use my mobile phone, which is a good thing anyway, right? But I uninstalled 30 apps from my phone that I wasn't using. Anyway, I don't feel like I should be talking about this. This is not a book review podcast, but I highly recommend it if you like reading big books. I think, one thing that I thought whilst I was reading it is most digital tools are oversold. And so when you think about digital transformation, usually a senior manager's been to a conference and they've seen a tool. This sounds really cynical, but it is. This is the truth. They've been to a conference and they're like, this tool's amazing, it'll replace the one that we've got. So it's either a renewal, let's buy something newer, it's like buying a new car. This old car's a bit broken. It still works, but we should buy a new one. It looks better, it looks flashier, sends the right message to our friends, or in the business terms to other companies or whatever. It's a renewal. You've got something that's just about to break, or it's become too expensive, so it really does need replacing. Or else what you want to do is look for efficiencies. Now, of course, efficiencies is a business way of saying, let's buy something to replace people. Now, again, it's a cynical view. I get it, but it is, right? you know. And so when people put in business cases, oh, we want to maximise the efficiencies, we want to get rid of some people, or reassign them somewhere else. And listen, that's the natural. If you ever read about technological advancement, I read a book about the Industrial Revolution. That's how interested I am. A few years back, about the Industrial Revolution, and of course about how people lost their jobs. You know, the mining industry is a great example in the UK. That just technology overtook it. We could import it cheaper into the UK, and so the mining industry collapsed. The loss of thousands of jobs, a huge cultural impact at the time. And so, you know, from time to time, organisations will buy technology. Now, of course, the wind's just whipped up here. Hopefully, you're not getting on the microphone. Organisations will look at technology and they'll say, this will give us something, and it's not wrong that they would do. Of course, it was right that they would do that. What they want to do is remain relevant. What they want to do is make sure that they're at the cutting edge, if that's the right word, or that feels a very businessy term, of everything that's new. They want to be able to maximise the data that they have and reuse it, and all of these things that you big fluffy sentences that you read in business cases. So whatever the reasons are for digital transformation, there has to be a solid, sound business case that says, if we buy this thing, these are the benefits that we're looking for, because the benefits have to justify the investment in the first place. And that's where we end up with these, what we call digital transformation projects. Because we say, oh, here's a tool that we're going to buy, and it might be like an ERP system or something along those lines. Well, this is what we're going to buy, and it's going to transform the way we do something. Now, you know, if you've got a small business, it might be lead generation, it might be a customer contact system, it might be, you know, whatever it is, but yeah, this is going to transform, and you figure out, this is what it's going to cost us over these many years, and this is what it's going to cost us to support, and these are the benefits that we're looking for in order to get the payback for that cost. It's real basic project management 101. Now, often big digital transformation projects fail because what we do, and by we, I mean senior managers in business, having been one, I know with the royal we do this. What we do, what senior managers do, is they over-egg the benefits in order to try and justify buying the thing. And they'll do some flashy this, that, and the other, and they might employ some people to come in and analyse, you know, this and that. And ultimately, we'll give them the answer that they asked for. God, this first podcast is really cynical. I know some companies do it really, really well, but mostly this has been my experience. Remember, you know, worked in business for a long, long time, you know, and Y2K, big, you know, they were some of the first digital transformation projects. I was a project manager for Y2K. My job was to put in technology that would ultimately kind of make life easier for the companies that I was working for, newspaper companies, but ultimately led to reduction in workforce. They did. Naturally, they did. Did they ever get the benefits that they stated in the business case? No. They really, really didn't, because the reality is when you actually put the thing in, it always takes longer, it always costs more, people want to customize it so that it does more than they wanted in the first place, so you end up overspending. Not only that, it creates new jobs, so that's a good thing. It creates new jobs to kind of maintain the thing that you'd never envisaged or people never told you. Also, because you've customized it, it then costs you more to service the thing and support the thing moving forward. So none of that seems to be taken into consideration at the business case, and yet there are so many case studies there are so many case studies internally of where organisations have done this badly, and yet they still make the same mistakes over and over again. There's no profession like the project management profession. I'm not blaming project managers here, by the way, because often they're being directed by senior managers that make the same mistakes over and over again. Organisations, they've got a lessons learned spreadsheet with them. Don't overegg the benefits, you know, and organisations will do that again. You know, and this year alone, we're going to spend, if the estimates are anywhere right, between kind of $5 and $30 billion worldwide on digital transformation projects. That feels a bit light, to be honest, because there's so much going on. But most people get it wrong because they either don't justify it correctly in the first place, or else, just let me take a sip of my americano, which I realised I haven't done yet. Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Sometimes a coffee on the fly can be a bit disappointing, can't it? It's all right. It's all right. I'll be honest, when I ordered it, the person serving me seemed a bit confused. I said, "Oh, do you have a batch brew?" which is where you brew filter coffee in advance. She was just like, "We have our daily brew." I'm like, "Oh, and is that done in batches?" And she was like, "No." It's like, "Okay, is it a filter?" She was like, "Yes, it's our filtered batch brew." I'm like, "Great, I'll have a filter." And she was like, "And how do you want that?" I was like, "What? Well, I'll have a filter." She was like, "Do you want a latte?" I was like, "So it's not a filter." And then at that point I thought, I sound like the biggest coffee knob in the world. I do. She was probably like, "This guy's from Melbourne. I know it." I was like, "I love an americano. It's fine. It's nice. It's fine. It just tastes like hot coffee. Nothing special." Oh my god, I'm doing the coffee knob thing. So they don't justify them properly in the first place. Or else, the other thing that most organisations get wrong is that they think the transformation piece is the implementation of the tool, and it's not. I know, it's earth-shattering, right? The transformation piece is the culture. You see, there's the connection, finally, there's the connection for this podcast. The transformation piece is the culture. So digital is the tool. It doesn't matter what it is. And it could be a suite of digital tools. You could be upgrading Microsoft Office. That's the worst example I could think of. But you could be upgrading Microsoft Office, right? If you're upgrading Microsoft Office, the digital piece is Microsoft Office. The transformation piece is the culture. Now, this is where change managers come in. And this is the role of change managers. Change managers take you from essentially the business case to the complete cultural transformation, to the point where you get the outcomes that you're looking for. Most people misuse change managers. Lots of change managers. If you're a change manager listening to this, I feel your pain. Mostly your job is resigned to communication and training. That's not the role of change management. Change management, and the clue is in the name, to be honest. Change management takes a business concept, a business case, and they say, what do we need to change within the business in order to achieve the outcomes that we're looking for in this business case, and to transform the business such that we're leveraging digital tools. Most organizations save the transformation, or try and do the transformation of culture, after the implementation of the digital tool, by which stage it's too late. So the culture has to change before the tool is implemented, in order for people to use it in the right way from day one, in order to get the benefits and the outcomes that you're looking for from the project. A project manager's job is to make sure the tool gets implemented in the right way, make sure the scope gets managed, and this is a project sponsor's job as well, to make sure that the scope is tightly managed so that you don't overspend, to make sure that you stay focused on the outcomes that you're looking for and nothing undermines those outcomes. Right? That's the project manager's job. Get the thing delivered, and if there's other scope that you want to do, you park it to one side, and that becomes phase 2, because you don't want to overspend. All right? You don't want to delay. Also, you're on a really tight transformation schedule. What you don't want to do is and organizations do this all the time. They go, "Oh, we're doing this transformation project. By the end of December 2023, we'll have a new blah blah in place, and everybody using that, we're going to transform the organization." Yeah. As soon as you extend the deadline, it undermines the culture straight away. People are like, "Oh, so we're not doing that." All right, and we shouldn't play the blame game, but employees will go, "Well, why is it later?" Oh, and then managers come up with all the excuses. "Oh, there was complexities that we didn't envisage," which is all a load of BS, because all they're saying is our risk management strategy was really, really poor. or else we're not very good at sticking to our priorities, or else there was a flashy widget that we liked that we wanted to add on. Just be honest. And at that point, what you're doing is then undermining the outcomes, right? You're undermining what you expect to get from the project. So that's a project manager's job, deliver the thing. The change manager's job runs all the way through. Change manager's involved from the start until way after the project's ended to make sure that the culture is successfully transformed. So Microsoft Office is a great example. Is if you want people to not use that database thing that they've been using for years, or if you want people to use Microsoft Excel in new flashy ways, the new functionality gives you, not only do you have to train them, right, to make sure that they can use all that functionality, you also need to switch some things off to stop them doing other stuff. And that's the cultural piece, and that's what we have to help people with, right? We have to redefine the behaviors that we expect of people using new tools. We have to redefine, because often what we do is we implement tools and we go, right, we're implementing Slack, communication will transform. No, it won't. Not unless the behaviors of individuals transforms. And so what you do is you do a bit of a cultural reset. And I did one for an organisation not long ago. They were implementing an ERP system and they did it exactly in the right way. Listen, it went a little bit over time and a little bit over budget, 3 months. It's not too bad. But they'd done all of the cultural work. So by the time it actually got implemented, people were like, oh, finally, it's here. We can't wait, because the culture had been redefined and they were really looking forward to leveraging the tool and everything they could get out of it. And so they did it in the right way. So that's the role of the change manager, to work with. And, you know, in that particular instance with that ERP transformation, we created a culture club. It wasn't called that, but we created a group from across the organisation. It was 85 people from across the organisation representing different parts, and supply chain to frontline counter staff, all of these people who were involved in this cultural transformation piece, and they passed messages back to their staff, and we did presentations and all of these things. But ultimately what we did is we involved all staff in what the future state of the organisation looked for, such that when the tool was implemented, we could leverage it from day one. Digital transformation really is only successful if the benefits of implementing the tool are realised, the things that you stated in the business case, and the culture is positively affected as a result. So even if redundancies are involved, what you want to do is make it the best experience. And if you've ever made anybody redundant, if you've ever been made redundant, I have, and it's not pleasant, but you want it to be done in exactly the right way, so that you leave with fully supported, with a decent payout, with, you know, kind of a really good experience of the way that everything was handled. You never want to be waiting for anything. It's horrible being made redundant, but if the organisation does it in the right way, at least you feel like you've been part of the process. It's not been done to you. And so digital transformation is only successful if you get the benefits you're looking for from the tool and the culture is positively affected as a result. If either one of those things is missing, then the digital transformation program will be seen as a failure, and worst case scenario, you can end up on the front page of the media, and the reputation of the organisation is harmed as a result. And there are so many examples of that. Anyway, that's digital transformation in 25 minutes. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. It's good to be back. Look forward to speaking to you on the next podcast. Ta-ra for now.